Hi, this is Natu, a guy who's way too old and way too long involved in this game, and you're watching Thorin's YouTube channel.
Right, obviously, the next year was where we barely got to play any lands. Like that kind of eats it. People remember once you made the playoffs, it was already that thing of like, there's no crowd. And then that was spoiling almost the last LAN, wasn't it? Like after that, we had all the online period, etc. Right? People forget at that LAN, it was Na'Vi that you lost to. Dude, Na'Vi, you played them fairly close. After that, they just body bagged Astralis, had G2 and won the fucking event. And everyone's like, holy shit, are they like the best team now? Right? Obviously, the question no one asks because everyone just acts like, well, it always had to go online. They didn't. Like, if the world hadn't gone the way it had gone then, there was still some life in Team Liquid, right? That lineup, it still had legs. It still could have been good, right?
Yeah, I think so. It's like one of those what if questions. Because I think like our mentality was so bad, like once the pandemic hit us, because there was a lot of ambiguity. Like we didn't know if completely out of like ESL or whoever's stature or whatever, like they could. If you go to Europe, you could be stuck there for 3 months, and I'm not doing that.
Yeah,
like I'm not gonna be away for that long if I don't have to. So it kind of just made me feel like it almost like I've never been a depressed kind of person, but like that made me feel really depressed going in. Like once I hit,
yes,
it was like every store was closing, like the gym was closing. I gained like a lot of weight during that period, which is surprising because like I'm not that kind of person at all. My mental was super bad, and we were scrimming in the same team literally every day. Period, just over and over and over. And then we'd play them at a tournament, and they would beat us, and it's just like this is going nowhere. It feels like no one knows the end of what's gonna happen. But it's like, all right, yeah, we can go to this tournament in Europe that just came about, but we might be locked down there. Like if there's another COVID strain that comes out or something, you know. So it's just for me, I felt so overwhelmed at that time. I just couldn't handle it anymore, and it was just such a big lifestyle change for me because I was used to traveling constantly, like back to back tournaments, like boot camps here, like all the time. So it's just like it was a really bad period in my life for me.
Sure. I mean, I'll add some more context. Like, obviously, because your team had been so good for the 2 years as well, you've just come off like years where like almost every tournament or the next one, you're in the final. Like, so the other thing people I think misunderstood about the online era, it wasn't just like, yeah, online players like a bit dodgier and people can hit crazy shots and they drink the Coca-Cola. We all know that shit. But I always thought if you're actually the top teams, the worst part is everything's just an online game. It's just you on your PC at home. And it's like, even if they say like you're in the grand final, it's a fucking another online game. Like, it's not the same when you used to being in the stadium and having the walkout that gets you hyped and then fucking you see your opponent and you see the trophy and you think like, the whole like the ambience of being at an event's different, right?
Yeah, I remember we played I don't remember what month it was, but we played in ESL ProLeague online against EG in the final. And I remember like I was getting hit by like a storm and I actually lost power and we had to pause the game for like over an hour because I had to take my computer and go to my friend's house that lived by me. Yeah, so and then I'll never forget we won it. And then he was like, "Did you win?" I was like, "Yep, we won." Like it was just
so
there was no like hype in it.
Yeah, of course. Instead of jumping up and everyone cheering and the trophy, like, yeah, true.
Yeah, I was like, "Nice, good job, guys." And then it's just like, all right, and going back home, having a normal day. You know, like you can't really like celebrate with your teammates or anything because everyone's just doing their own thing. So yeah, it's so different, so different.
Right, obviously after this, you did do that brief switch to Valorant for like a year and a bit, whatever, right? When you did this, I have an initial question. Look, it's so many years now, no one will get mad if it's true, right? There was players I have heard back then, like this is just how silly any esports is, that really did just get offers like, you want to come play Valorant, here's a contract. And some of them did tell me that they were like, I actually am not joking, I haven't played the game, but they still got the offer anyway because people thought so early, you know, let's get the talent or whatever. Obviously, there were some people, because we were all online, if people know the beta came out in like, I think the end of the spring or something, and everyone could always already access it. Had you already sort of like played some Valorant before? Had you barely played it? Like, what was the situation when you switched over?
Yeah, I was playing a little bit for fun here and there. Initially, if you remember, I wanted to compete in Counter-Strike still. Like I wanted to join like the Gen G or whatever.
Oh, right. You want to leave the team. Okay.
Yeah, so like I benched myself, and then I was like, all right, I'm gonna see if I can find another team because like our environment is just really bad right now. Everyone's not having a good time. Everyone's just super stressed out about how things are going within the team. And I was like, everyone can feel like when you need a change, right? Like it's it's just that feeling, the mutual feeling, the elephant in the room kind of thing. So I stepped down, and I remember I wanted to join Gen G. Like they were realistically my only option at that time, but they had like a roster lock issue, and I was like, oh, I guess my only other option right now is Valorant. I like the game is a lot of fun. It's new, you know. I feel like I can have a lot of impact in it. I'm still like fresh off of Counter-Strike, like being a really good team. So I figured I can get like a really good offer and try to do something there and build like a legacy in Valorant. And then I remember Brax was I think Brax was like literally the first salaried player in Valorant, even though the game was like not even real yet. There was no like tournaments. And he actually lived right by me, so like we hung out and all that. So I really wanted to make a team of Brax again, which was T1 at the time. And I had like Fraud on there and stuff, and AZK. So it was kind of like full circle again, like with the Ava Power lineup. So it was really cool to me that we could like meet up later after like all this Counter-Strike stuff. And obviously they're going to be hungry because they got banned, and they probably want to compete again. I don't know what. They haven't really been doing much within like the scene, the Counter-Strike scene, because they've been kind of chilling. So they're going to be hungry to compete. But then the offer didn't really make sense for me, and that's when me and Spencer started forming a team with 100 Thieves.
Right, when you went to Valorant, this is another thing that people probably don't know. As far as I know, initially, weren't you actually like the IGL, and then even when Steel joined, you were still the IGL, right? It's later that you did the swap around, right? So if people don't know you were like an IGL in Valorant. Like, what was that actually like? Because obviously, if people don't know, I know it looks like it's just CSGO with like anime shit. It's not. It's essentially like CSGO with like League of Legends stuff because of the ults and the fucking comps and the agents and everything. It's like if you've only ever played CSGO, you have no idea what it's like to try like peak someone who has a totally different ability and an ult that you can do. Like it's I've heard you have to put mad hours into this game to IGL.
Yeah. So whenever I thought Steel, like obviously like back then was like a really good IGL. Like throughout his time in Counter-Strike, so I figured like he could IGL for me and I can have that impact that I want, like kind of back then, to have like my aggressive lurks and like be able to just frag out, because I felt like the game was so much easier, like compared to coming from Counter-Strike and then playing like people who are coming from like freaking Apeks and like Fortnite and stuff. Like I'm a CS player, like I'm really confident. And so that's basically what happened. And I gave the IGL to Josh. He was like, yeah, I can do it. And then pretty much what happened. And then 100 Thieves was like, yeah, we're gonna start doing like open tryouts for the remaining 2 spots. And we tried out a bunch of people. We tried out like even like Roka, for example. And we ultimately wound up going with Dicey and Asuna for that lineup. And we actually did pretty good. We won the first tournament that we played, the first strike tournament. So stuff was going uphill at that moment.
The problem was the next year, even though you did have the one last run that was really good at the end, this looks like a nightmare, mate, where I remember them they'd just been used like every 2-3 months. Like, they changed another player. This guy's benched, right? This guy's in the lineup. There's new players in. There's another player in. Like, if you had to describe it simply, what was the issue in 100 Thieves? Why could you never like settle on a lineup?
Well, the core was like me, Asuna, and Hiko at the time, and then Steel. So we figured like there's the talent pool in Valorant is going to be so new that we can just find a player that we really want to play with. Because we started playing with Dicey, and he was just like really inexperienced, and he was like our main op. So we were trying like really hard to work with him to get like the kind of op we wanted. And at the time, looking back, it's like you have like this op that's so broken. Like every team has this like star player opera, like they have like tens and stuff in Wardell, for example, where they'll take a deep, like Counter-Strike offers, like they'll take a deep line, get a pick, and then dash away for free.
Yes, it was OP as fuck for a star player, wasn't it?
It was like dream scenario for an opera if you wanted to put it that way, but we didn't really see Dicey like improving as much as we wanted to, so ultimately we just dropped him. And then basically like we wanted like a Counter-Strike lineup, and that's whenever like we brought in like Ethan and stuff, because like there was just so much ambiguity still with the COVID stuff going on that I knew that eventually Counter-Strike players were going to start transitioning over unless they wanted to be in Europe like full time. So it was just like kind of open season in a way.
Right. There was later on the one mega run, which you did have a run at one of the VCTs where you went to the semis and you played the NV squad, which people know became like one of the best teams ever in Valorant. And at the same tournament, you even beat the Gambit team that actually won that event at the time, was like number one, etc. So there was like one nice, really big pop-off tournament. And I noticed at the time, I'm not an expert about Valorant, but I do know a little bit, is at the time you were playing like, you were on like the Astra, which if people don't know is like a controller. So this is more like, it's not like the superstar role basically. It's not like the jet, like you say, with the AWP that goes in and all the fucking insane out. How would you describe like, what sort of role did you play at this time? And did everything just come together for this lineup? Was it actually like, did you know it was a good team before that?
So yeah, the Astra role was, I wanted to originally try playing Sentinel, like the Cypher and Killjoy, where you can kind of like anchor a bomb site and, you know, like you can have pretty good lurks and whatnot, but still didn't really want to play smokes at the time. So I just kind of took up the smoke role and I tried to be like super innovative within it because it's pretty boring. Like, let's be honest, like you just do smokes and then you just do whatever you want. But Omen was kind of cool in the sense that you could like teleport short distance and you're going to ult like whenever or wherever you want. So I was trying to be pretty innovative. And I think back then you could be really innovative because people just generally didn't know how to play like the character. So you'll see a lot of people say like, oh, he was like, a lot of people learned like my style.
All right.
But it was pretty cool because like you can do like a smoke like in the ground, whereas like as now you can't really do that anymore. So they kind of like nerfed it a little bit. But I was basically trying to abuse like the game mechanics that probably shouldn't have even been in the game, honestly, where you could put a smoke like halfway in the ground. Like imagine if you could do that in Counter-Strike, you know? So I was like bringing previous knowledge and all that. But yeah, I do believe our roster was good. I think we had the most experience probably out of any team in the world at that moment. So we were just trying to abuse that. And you could see like we had a really good comeback at that tournament. And that team was really resilient, I would say. I think that was like our biggest attribute. Just like our pure LAN experience and stuff.
So then the obvious question is like, yeah, after that you had like the last chance qualifier that you didn't get through to go to the champions or whatever. But like, that's it. You didn't want to just see like what happens at another next year if I play Valorant. You were just done. You were going to go to CSGO.
Well, it wasn't really like a plan. It was like in my mind, I was done with CS. But if you remember, I wasn't done with CS because like I wanted to join the Gen G during COVID. So I got a good offer from Liquid, and John was messaging me, and we could basically build like whatever team we wanted.
Oh, okay.
So that was super intriguing to me, and I was like, all right, like I can give this one last shot. But it was like it was nothing pre-planned or anything like that. I wasn't like, man, I hate this game. I want to go back to Counter-Strike. Like I'm gonna leave in December. Like that was definitely not a thought in my mind. I think a lot of people think that. They think that I hate Valorant because I went back, but honestly, it was just like a bunch of things that added up that made sense in my mind.
So if you didn't get the offer from Liquid, that you just stay in Valorant, right? You're probably playing Valorant now.
Yeah.
Do you ever wonder
100%.
what if? Like, would you have been one of the best? Could you have been a really good player?
Yeah, I believe I would probably still be one of the best. I had a lot of confidence in that game when I was playing it because obviously I was one of the more experienced players already coming into it, and then I also was experienced in my role. Because I've been playing it since the beginning of the game, basically. So, and I believe I did have a really good understanding of the game, even though it's pretty different from Counter-Strike. But I was actually IGLing at that time. Once we got rid of Steel,
right?
I took up IGLing. Yeah. So, and I was having a lot of fun with it at the time, actually. So, yeah, I definitely ask what if sometimes just for fun.
By the way, when you were playing Valorant, did you ever like look in on CS or see how things were doing? Like, did you ever see how Team Liquid was doing?
Liquid was probably one of the only teams I actually would watch. I would just, if I was bored, I would just do like Team Liquid highlights versus like Team Liquid versus FaZe highlights or whatever. But I was never like, oh, Liquid's playing at 4 a.m. I'm gonna wake up and watch their match kind of thing.
Was it hard to see them struggle though? Like that was one of the worst fucking years ever for them.
I didn't really like. I wasn't like emotionally invested, if that makes sense. So I didn't really have like an opinion on it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it definitely sucks to see them not do good.
When you came back to CSGO, because the team took a while to really get going, obviously like the YEKINDAR moves that really sparked it. I know a lot of people, like you were saying earlier, like I've no doubt everyone was just telling you all the time, well, obviously nitr0 wasn't in CSGO, so he's washed, so he just doesn't know what he's doing. Or even though that lineup was a bit dodgy, people remember like the lineups, like I'm the biggest shox fan ever. Like, yeah, but not in 2022. Like, I mean, the spoilers, look what happened since. Like, he that's why he's sort of gone to seed now. And he's like, I'll be back for CS2. It's like, yeah, because he played a billion years. Like, the problem is that lineup, it just didn't look like it fit together, right?
Well, I think we had just a lot of like initial issues with me being gone for a while. I was also IGLing, so I had to catch up to meta stuff. I had to get adjusted to like this grenade dropping thing. And
right. Oh yeah, that mechanic
changes.
wasn't there when you were there. Yeah, sure.
Right. So like, and then also there's like Ancient, which I literally have never seen the map before. So there was just a bunch of things, and then shox obviously was like a really good player when I was still playing Counter-Strike. So I had that initial thought, like, oh, we got shox, like it's a legend, like he's gonna be amazing, which he was really good for us, like in terms of like bringing ideas and like out of server stuff. But once we got into the server, we kind of didn't really mesh as well as I thought we would.
Right.
But he definitely taught me a lot, and he's a great person, and it was a fun time for me. It was a fun group of guys. I mean, that we had. So I was also learning the game again, not learning the game, but like learning or getting adjusted to like the new changes that they had. And I remember when I got there, I was like, we're gonna make Ancient our best map. Like I want something new, because they tried Ancient before on the previous Liquid lineup, but they didn't like it.
Right.
So I was like, let's do something new, and Ancient actually did become our best map. So that was like a cool goal of mine that we achieved. And they're still playing Ancient now, so yeah.
Right. Obviously, people then know the story that YEKINDAR came, but people forget, technically initially came on loan, and it wasn't even until after, like, I think it was like after the majors went mental that he actually signed, like, properly and like, bought himself out and all that jazz, right? Can you remember the story of, like, how he initially even came to join the team? Like, how does a guy from Latvia who plays in fucking Virtus Pro over in CIS, how does he join Team Liquid?
I think we just got word that he was available. And at least my teammates knew that he was really good. I didn't really play against him when I was previously pro. So, and he was like, I think top 10 like the previous year or something. So I'm like, damn, like we get the opportunity to play with a super good player.
Yeah.
Like we should 100% like at least try it, you know? And that's kind of how we got word. And I know that he was in between a couple teams on what he wanted to join, or at least he had like offers from. I'm not gonna like say the team names or anything, but yeah, it was a cool opportunity for us to even get that.
Right. Obviously, one of the things, like, it's one of the reasons why I imagine he became IGL now is like, if in your team, it makes sense why he would have been like a secondary caller and someone contributing ideas. Because one thing he has done in the game that I'll give him credit for is when he's on T side, it's like he's playing his own game within a game, because he isn't just the entry guy that's like, right, tell me where to go, or like, I'll hit this timing. It's like he is trying to like read, like the setup was like this, like next time I can go like that. Obviously, he has bonkers aim too. He can definitely crack open a sight. What's it actually like to integrate a player like that in Liquid? How do you use YEKINDAR to the best?
I think when you get a player like that, it's definitely like the best thing that you can get as an IGL is someone who has high intuition and will take those high risk, high reward kind of plays. Because if he gets that high risk, high reward, then it's like the round just falls apart for the other team, and he's obviously really good at it. So, which is why you see like a lot of IGLs nowadays trying to be that role.
Yes.
And like they actually have pretty good success at it, because they can also just like tell they have like more of a voice. No one's gonna tell them otherwise, kind of thing, you know. So it's a lot of freedom, and I gave him that freedom a lot, and because I trusted him a lot, and I know he has super high intuition, and I think he even says himself, like before Virtus Pro, he was like a brain dead fragger. Right. He kind of just did what he was told, and I think James really taught him a lot, and
yes,
he has that system in his mind now, and he believes that's the best system for a team, and I learned a lot from it, and I think James is super smart from what YEKINDAR tells me, and I can tell that he's definitely telling the truth with that one.
Right, obviously, when you got him, you had this inspired run at IEM Cologne, and he got to play on the stage again. That alone, by the way, dude, after all like the online era, then the Valorant shit, then he come back and all the struggles, it had to be fucking cool to be on the stage at Cologne again.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole reason I came back to Counter-Strike was I wanted to experience this LAN again, or LANs again, and because like there's nothing like Counter-Strike LANs like right now. Even like in Valorant, like maybe the Tokyo LAN is comparable.
Yes,
but it took them like what 3 years to even have that.
Yes,
you know. So and then like Counter-Strike, there's a big LAN like every other weekend. It feels like so. I needed that adrenaline rush again, and it definitely suffices having that Cologne, like where I have a lot of history as well.
And people will forget, because obviously that was like the one tournament where like Sun Pius basically got himself that contract in Ents because we played on Movistar.
Yeah.
Dude, you guys were that close to beating him though. You were that close to beating him, right?
I know. Yeah, Sun Pius was like, no, we played Movie Stars at one of the ESL ProLeagues with shox, and I think we beat them there. And they were like kind of like a tier 2 team at the time.
Yeah.
Like they weren't like winning tournaments or anything crazy. Like they were still a really good team, and they're from like a region where you don't really see much out of. So Sun Pius was like really good for, and he was like owning us too. Like he was playing really well. So I'm not surprised to see him like on a tier 1 team now.
Even though, sadly, obviously, yeah, there's some really good times. You won some tournaments, you won some lands, you won the Grand Slam. Obviously, a lot of these questions are sort of like, this is a brutal loss in a final. Dude, that Pro League loss.
The Vitality one?
That looks like another, that's like another like nightmare fuel fucking loss, isn't it?
Yeah, that was a rough one.
I mean, it was basically, people don't remember, it was almost won. It was like that close to one, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There is like, I don't know, there's a lot of emotional things happening. Let's just say that.
Okay. What was it like? Because obviously you didn't get to experience this before. I mean, you played him a bit in his rookie year, but what was it like to play? Everyone knows this is also where like ZywOo was again contending for like best player in the world. What is he like to play against? Is he different from Simple to play against? Obviously everyone just sees the kills, but to me they have pretty different styles, right?
I think ZywOo in this current form, I think he's better than Simple. I think he has more impact, and I think he just does overall like smarter plays. Like he's obviously his rifle is insane, and he even chooses a rifle over his op, which is crazy because his op is insane too. But it just goes to show you how much confidence the dude has. But I think like if you're playing against him, he's gonna do the correct play like 95% of the time.
Right.
So he's very smart, and he just has high intuition for the game, just like Simple does. But I think Simple is just more flashy. But ZywOo is just like, I feel like he's more consistent, and overall probably has more impact within the team environment.
What about the other part? I mean, if people say you get no credit because YEKINDAR came in, no one even mentions daps was there. They act like there was no coach. Like I always thought, like if you look at the timing of when he came in, obviously he used to be your old IG all back way back in the day. You played with him before, right? What did daps bring to Team Liquid?
He brought a lot of good things. Like I'd say he helped with the structure. He helped with a lot of like just organizing all of our thoughts together. And he also was like kind of a mediator for us. Like if he wouldn't let things go, like if someone was having a bad day, he would be the one to be like, yo, like what's going on? Can we fix this before it becomes like a bigger problem than it should be? So he's a very good icebreaker. He's very organized, and he helps with structure, and he helps creating strats, and he works really hard. So I respect him a lot for that. Like he's usually the last one in the room at night trying to, if we're at a tournament, he'll be like the last one trying to prepare. Like he makes sure he gets all of his stuff done. If he has to wake up early and lose sleep over it, then he'll do it because he's the coach, and he always like jokes about it. So I think he was a great coach, honestly.
And then people forget, like, yes, obviously the Rio Major was like a whatever. You can forget that one. But after that, dude, you lost 3 straight tournaments to the team that won. Like you had the heroic one, they went on to win that blast. Then you had the 2 tournaments, the G2 one. You had to play them in the final, and then in the semis, like they were just fragging everyone. Like Team Liquid, actually, this era was like a nice little like comeback, right? The team was good again. Were you actually good in like the boot camp and the scrims? Was there like real chances to do something then?
I'd say compared to like the past boot camps that we've had with previous iterations, we had better boot camps. Like but some boot camps were a lot better than others.
Okay.
Kind of depends on like how our mentality was. Like if we were feeling kind of burnt out, the emotions would kind of be overflowing. Whereas like previous boot camps, we could just be like scrimming 6 times a day and just winning every scrim. But like I think it's just Counter-Strike just feels more competitive now compared to what it used to be, and it's less reliant on skill and more reliant on just teams being caught up in the current meta and just doing things correctly, which is something that we tried to harp on in that team. And yeah, I do think we were a really good team. Like we were top 10, I think, since we pretty much picked up YEKINDAR, which is decent and a decent accomplishment for us. But obviously we wanted more, and we believe fully that we had the roster to become one of the best teams in the world. It was just a matter of like putting all of our ideas together and having good energy, I feel.
Right, we talked about it a bit earlier, but I actually saved it till now to ask about Naf, because even though he was amazing in like 2018 and he was really good in the Grand Slam year, I've even told him this privately and publicly. Dude, I think in the modern day, he's like mastered his fucking style of how to play CSGO, like that fucking like lurky style. Like if you put him in a clutch, dude, he wins against everyone. It just feels like I feel like even the opponent knows he's going to win the clutch if they give him like a little inch of sweat. What is Naf like to play with? How do you use a player like that, do you think?
I think he's super important he's always been a really underrated factor, in my opinion, to our teams. He never causes issues. Like he'll never be the person to cause an issue within the team. He'll always do what he said. I think one of his biggest flaws as a player is he doesn't really like actually, I take it back because he actually recently started watching like the opponents. But before he would just kind of just get on and just listen and play. But that's not necessarily a flaw, it's just kind of his style. But recently he started actually like watching the opponents that were going to play and trying to figure out things that he could do, because I think before he was more of a rotator and now he's like an anchor. So I think it was like, as an anchor player, you need to see like what flashes the enemies are throwing on their execs, what are they scaling, like all these things. So he started doing a lot more external work that like a player like Taco would do, for example. Taco wasn't IGLing or secondary IGLing, but he would still watch a lot of their games back. So I think he's been amazing as a teammate, and he's definitely super smart. He has that high intuition, and he's also really skilled. I think his skill is underrated. I think people look at other players more than Keith, whereas Keith is like that solid clutch player. You can always rely on him to have that good game whenever everyone else is having like a bad game. Like he's fairly consistent.
Right, let's just talk about the Blast Paris Major, the last ever CSGO Major. Because, dude, even though now people remember the run and you got to the quarters, there was a moment I remember in that Fluxo game, the 0-2 game on the second map, where I was like, bro, Team Liquid's about to go out last place. Like this, it's over. Like almost like the game's like, it's basically leaving. Like the game's exiting. Like it's over. Did you ever think the same thing?
Honestly, we were having a lot of problems at the time, and I feel like the losses that we were having were really bad losses. Like we were losing in really bad ways. We were in bad form. Our confidence was getting pretty low. Our star players weren't stepping up. The strats weren't working that well. So overall, it's just like a bad time period for us. But we believe that we were still the better team, and we actually did have a pretty good boot camp going into it. But we're just like, what is happening? Like this, it's not our strat. Like it can't be our strats, right? Like we're just not hitting our shot. Like we're better than these players that we're playing. What's going on? And then I think like it's just like a Team Liquid thing where we're on our back foot and we finally decided to do something. It feels like, and that's kind of what happened where we came back.
Because to me, after that, like considering how whack the first part was, the Swiss system after that, the Legends one to go to the playoffs, that was banging. Like you just crushed Na'Vi. Then you had this, even though you lost it, like that series against Heroic was like at the time like the best match of the tournament. Yeah. That was a really great game. I mean, both teams could have won this one. Then you beat Into the Breach. Like everyone will go, yeah, lol, Into the Breach. Yeah, they're the ones who just fucked up like Ensign FaZe to get to that match. Like actually, it looks now like suddenly the teams come together. Right, the turnaround's crazy.
Yeah, we definitely started feeling more confident, and like Into the Breach, like there's a lot of pressure on that game because we didn't ever scrim against them. We didn't really know what to expect. The only thing we could do is like watch our games back and figure out what the hell like Cypher's doing. Like I don't know. So like we didn't have like that much footage to look at, but we just believed that we were in good form at that moment, and we just showed it. And like, yeah, the Heroic game was really tough as well. I think Heroic plays pretty good versus us, and I think at that moment they were kind of on their uphill, and they were starting to play like super well. They got Jabby. Jabby was turning into like a star player. He was being really consistent, and he has like super good mechanics. So I think it was like, I think they were just kind of the better team that day.
Right, in the quarters, look, no disrespect to Apeks, but a lot of people were like, right, the semis is going to be Vitality against Liquid, and then people were already even figuring out, and then what could Liquid do against them, blah, 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 all that jazz, right? But if you look at this match, like, Apeks has the lead early in both these games. Like, in the end, like, it's close, but it's not as close as you'd hope it would be. Like, I got the vibe, and I did do an interview with Cube, and I've talked to Stiko as well. Like, I heard they did basically go super hard, like fucking prepping for this and trying to figure out like angles and what to do. Did they feel like they countered you? Did Liquid play bad? What was the story of this quarter?
Honestly, not really. It felt like they did the same stuff. We just had no solution for it.
Right.
And I feel like we were getting caught off guard a lot with their aggressive lurks, and our rotations were just bad. Like after watching the game back and reviewing it, I think they won the 1v1s that they needed to win in order to get those like crucial round wins. And I think, I don't know, it just felt like they were kind of on a heater and they were playing really well. And then they won those crucial duels that they needed to win in that moment. And I think that's kind of like what the gist of it was for us. And then, yeah, it really sucked to lose like in that fashion too, because I felt like we had a good chance of doing something really good there.
I mean, at the same time, like, obviously, yes, in the short term, I get that bagel. But the idea that you came back from Valorant and actually also got to be on, like, the fucking stage of the last major is pretty cool in a way.
Yeah, I mean, it just sucks that, like, I didn't get to win anything coming back. Like, the ESL ProLeague against Vitality was definitely the closest.
Right.
But it just really sucks to, like, think about that. I didn't win anything coming back. It's, like, something that I'll always harp on myself for.
Right. What would you say to people? How would you explain why nitr0's retired from CSGO? Because obviously, look, I mean, I know back then people did make it like, and CS2's going to be in the summer. Like, spoiler, it is the summer. CS2 ain't here. And it doesn't look like it's coming soon. So, right, there is more CSGO to be played. So why did nitr0 retire?
I think it's just a bunch of factors. Like, all the current organizations in North America are looking to move to Europe, which is something I'm just generally not interested in right now in my life, at this point in my life. So it's just like, more external factors than me just not wanting to play the game. Like if it was still like 2019, I would probably still be playing the game. Like it's just with how things have gone since COVID, it's been pretty rough. And you know, my life's different now. I have 2 kids and I'm locked down here pretty much. So it doesn't make sense for me to consider that right now.
I'll just ask explicitly because everyone's going to wonder if like that was like a clever way to answer it. You don't have any plans to be a pro in CS2, right?
No, nope, no.
Okay. Right, I've got a question. It's going to be more of a broad one now. So, because like I said, unfortunately, in the era when you were having all these amazing, 2 years, you were in a billion finals, and won a bazillion semi-finals. Yeah, there's another thing, by the way, I'll throw in there. When people say people choke, like choking in the final against the best team ever is sort of like, in a way, it's not even the worst choke ever, if you know what I mean. Like, essentially, if you were just chokers, you wouldn't win a bazillion semi-finals against everyone. Like, that's a pressure match too. That's a hard match too. These are amazing teams. So my question goes like this. Not only do I think you never got any credit for the tactics, I mean, Naf even said that in his interview. He's like, everyone acts like we just shot people. Like, we had all sorts of tactics and counters and things we would do, but no one looked. Everyone just saw the frags. But I think as well, people act like you were only a tactician or you were only the designated person. Because the thing is, obviously, your style isn't to do like, you're not KD and you don't go like, guys, come together like, you know, it's fucking any given Sunday. Look to your left, look to your right. You're not doing those speeches. That's not your style. So what's the nitr0 style of leadership? Because look, it produced a lot of fucking results.
I think I bring a lot of calmness to the team, and I think like one of my biggest attributes to leadership is my sense of calmness. Like, I'm never gonna tilt at anyone unless like they're really pissing me off and they're like purposely trying to antagonize me. But I think I bring a lot of just like consistency and calmness within my like vibe, and in terms of like preparation and all that, like I try to be as consistent as possible so people know what to expect from me. and also within my calling system. So I think like those are my biggest attributes. And then also I think just in terms of maybe not necessarily like when I came back, but before, I think just having like I truly believe I have like a lot of skill for an IGL. So,
oh, mate, the other thing is, people forget that. Because obviously part of when you were on the Grand Slam run was the AUG meta. Dude, you were fucking people up with the AUG.
yeah, the AUG was fun. The Krieg too.
Right, what about this then? Yeah, go on.
I was gonna say, I feel like there was always like a debate on like skilled IGLs, and I was always like me and Glaive are like here, and then like everyone else is here. I do believe that, but people also say like, oh, he's skilled. That means if he's skilled, that means he's lacking in the tactical department.
Yes.
It's like, to me, it doesn't make any sense at all. Like, you can be skilled and you can also be a tactician at the same time. Where I feel like I had a really good amount of both of those things.
Another thing is, I feel like because they just saw you lose the finals to Astralis, people do forget that like how many tournaments Liquid won in the Grand Slam period. And at the end, I remember at the end of your career, I looked this up to make that like video, and I was like, wait a minute, what the fuck? How many trophies? Because people take for granted how hard it is to win one tier 1 LAN trophy. Like, dude, I can tell you right now, there's a lot of really great IGLs that when you go and look, they won way less trophies than you think. In your mind, they were on top, but they might have only won 4 trophies, 5 trophies. Then one might just be a blast, or one might be like just a DreamHack Summer or something. When you actually go and look at it, dude, you're right up there. If we were putting all the IGLs by trophies won and Grand Slams and stuff, like the problem is everyone's going to look at the major winners and assume they were the greatest IGLs. Aside from that, like, you have an insane career for someone who, as we said at the beginning, you were never meant to be an IGL, and you definitely never meant to be a fucking AWPer. Like, as a role swap, that's pretty crazy, the career you had, right?
Yeah, I think it's definitely cool to look back on and see all the achievements that I've had, especially considering I did role swaps pretty much my whole career. I played pretty much every role, and it's actually, when I go to Valorant, it's pretty nice because I feel like I can apply that and play like a variety of agents within that game because of my Counter-Strike swapping rules. Because, you know, if you're an opper, then you're an opper. You're probably going to be playing like a jet or chamber or whatever the current agent is. You're not going to be able to play like a sentinel because you don't know how to anchor, for example. But like for me, I've anchored, like when I came back to Counter-Strike, I anchored like this recent time coming back, I was full anchor the whole time pretty much. Whereas before I was never an anchor. Even like from 2014 until 2020, I never anchored one time. So coming back, it was a different game for me as well in terms of the CT sides. Whereas before I was like opping a lot and rotating a lot and trying to figure out like what's going on macro wise. But instead I'm just like sitting in a bomb site, you know, holding like counter utilities. So it was a completely different game coming back to like with the shox lineup and stuff.
Right, obviously, because you had this fabulous career, you wouldn't choose to do this. But have you ever thought, just as a fun idea, what if there was never a reason in Team Liquid I had to become an IGL? What if I just played my roles, my game, and I was just a rifler, and I got to be the one who fucking popped off, and I was in the HLTV top 20? What if you'd have had that career, the original one that was planned for you? Do you ever wonder what would happen?
Honestly, no, I don't really wonder, because like now I'm just so focused on like this IGL type stuff, even in like Valorant, that it's hard for me to even like remember how that felt like when I first started Counter-Strike. It's so hard for me to have that mindset shift of like, what was it like, you know?
What about, I know this is something way back in the day I think I asked you privately about, but I remember there was something dodgy, right? You have to claim, I have a good memory, but as far as I remember, it goes like this. When you were the best Liquid player, because at the time in like 2015, you were like the main star that everyone was seeing, and the team was like not having the results it wanted. As far as I remember, there was like a time period where like Cloud9 did try to like ask you to join or something, but I think they did some dodgy shit, like denied it all later, like no, we never did or whatever. Wasn't there a time when you had offers to go to other teams?
I mean, players would just kind of like poke their head in to see like, but it was never nothing. It was never any serious offers. Right? No, there was never a serious discussion about me leaving or anything like that. No.
Okay. Right. What about this then? At the end of this interview, do you have any final message for people? Do you have anyone you want to thank or say hello to?
Just thanks to all the fans that have supported me and believed in me. And shout out to my wife, who's been amazing to help me along this like journey and all that, and just all the people who've helped me achieve this goal. And it really sucks looking back that we were only winning like 2 years out of like this long period that's almost been 10 years. But I'm very grateful that I was allowed to have like these teammates that I've had. It's been amazing, and it'll be something like I'll never forget for sure.
I've been pleasantly surprised during the time I've had my Patreon and my Patreon community, the Skrilluminati, by both the financial support they've provided and the moral support. And so this video was kindly supported and made possible by Starlust, Theo Buenzelli, Ahmed Haju, Matt Pugnaccio Racula, Toucan, Jensen Go, Animosity, Tobias Bernasconi, Bot Pounder 420, Yerka 86, Tosh, and as always, you know it, a special thanks goes out to my main man, Jerky's Minion. Would you like to ask a question in one of those AMAs where I tend to go pretty in depth? Sometimes they even spin out into their own videos. Do you want teasers to find out who the upcoming guests are for the myriad of interviews that I do across esports? Maybe you want to suggest a topic or a guest? We have a channel on my Discord where you can do that if you're at the right tier. And of course, you could potentially take part in one of those lengthy esports discussions with me about whatever is on your mind in the scene. Well, if any of those perks sound tantalizing, put your money where your mouth is and join the Skrilluminati today via the Patreon link in the description box below.